guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new IDontWorkHereLady content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled Malicious Compliance versus Pro Revenge. High school sucked because I was a forever friend-zone nerdy gamer guy, so I decided for my senior year I was going to get out of Ohio and study abroad. I slept through 3 years of German, so I applied to go to Germany. Ended up getting placed in Salzburg, Austria, which is the most beautiful place on earth I've been to date and need to visit again soon. The study abroad place had a few warnings for the next year before I left. Don't get in criminal trouble, don't get crap grades, and don't fall in love. My only danger with the first one was my lead foot. I totaled my first car, but was allowed to drive my old man's 95 Ranger 4-cylinder 5-speed, and it barely got out of its own way. The second one, I did enough to get C's and B's without caring much. The third one, I end up meeting, dating, and falling madly in love with my now wife and mother of my daughter. I'm 17, work full-time for summer. As stated, my old man lets me borrow his truck after I get off work. The rules are I have to be home by 10 weekdays and 11 on weekends. He justifies this, that if I broke down or whatever he'd have to come get me and fix the truck before he had to leave for work at 6. To my turbocharged hormones, this is tyranny. I spend every moment I'm not at work with my GF, but summer is quickly coming to an end and I have to leave the country. The last day before I have to leave, my old man eases the restriction and says I can have until midnight to be home and can be gone all day. We leave for NYC the next morning at 10. This is when I hatch a plan. I'm leaving the country so I can't be given a worse curfew or extra chores, and my family wouldn't throw away the study abroad money unless it was dire. I spend the whole day with my GF and tell her to wait up after I leave. I have a surprise. I drive home and make it there at 11:58, creep into my room and spend the next hour AIing her. At 1 I roll the truck down the driveway and head back to her house. Fall asleep with her in my arms. Life is perfect. I knew full good and goddamn well I was breaking the intent, but not the letter of the law. My argument was that my old man never said how early I could go to her house. I never woke up before noon, so it was just left unsaid. Perfect malicious compliance in my head. I wake up at 9, just enough time for a teary goodbye and to haul ass home to head to NYC to fly to Vienna. But I look out the door and the truck is gone. I panic and realize I'm a dead man. My trip is off. I'm gonna have to work all the hours to pay my old man back for a stolen truck and wasted trip. I'm never going to have time to see my GF, and I'll never experience Europe like I wanted. I call my old man in this panic to hear him answer with deafening silence upon hearing the news. Now for my old man's pro revenge. He heard me roll in just before midnight and went fully to sleep. He did not hear me roll out at 1 because years of playing Dungeons and Dragons taught me how to be a good sneaky archer type. But when he woke up at 6 and saw both the truck and I were gone, he knew there was only one place in the world I could possibly be. So he and my stepmom drove over to my GF's and with the spare key took the truck and went home. When he got my call a few hours later, he gave a full 30-second beat and then began yelling and told me I better find his damn truck or I was never gonna see the outside of my room again, much less my GF or Austria. I'm freaking out, running around her neighborhood asking if anyone had seen the truck, about to call the cops when he calls back 5 minutes later laughing his ass off. He tells me he stole the truck and I was in deep crap and I better be home fast. He makes me get a ride home with my GF and her mom. When I arrived, he is standing in the driveway smug as hell. I get berated for an entire 6-hour drive to NYC about how big of a dumbass I am and leave the country as planned. It all works out in the end. I got the girl who I am happily with 17 years later, and the truck until she died of Ohio rust 12 years later. The next story is titled An Unintended Job. Years ago, my husband and I were on a cruise which stopped in Grand Cayman. I was headed to the beach with family, and he was going solo on a snorkeling trip, which he ended up missing. While looking for his tour, he stopped by a small visitor info kiosk. These are a 1 or 2 person stand with just an open-air window. Anyway, no one was there, so he went in to see if he could find the info he needed. While inside the kiosk, numerous people would stop and ask him directions questions. He was amazed that so many people didn't believe he wasn't an employee. I don't know what went through his head, but he decided just to give people the info they needed. He'd been to Grand Cayman several times, and most of it was pretty simple stuff. However, a few people he said he didn't work there and didn't have the info. When they didn't believe him, he just made up directions, etc. He had so much fun playing info guide that he missed his tour. He said the highlight of his few hours was all the dirty looks he got from the wrong direction people. Some others insisted on giving in tips, which he left in the kiosk. I still cannot believe he got away with doing this. The next story is titled "Neighbor Messes with My Property." I built a driveway in front of her entry. I'm an expat American living in a small touristy community in Scandinavia. It's a very historic area with some very odd dwelling styles and rules and associations. My flat is one of these weird structures. Originally, the property was built by an importer, with the grand master house and lots of property behind. The front has a beautiful garden, as well as a lovely restored by me water pond. The house is divided into two flats, one small flat upstairs and a much larger unit downstairs. The ratios are 40%/60% of available space. Additionally, the land behind the house now has 3 cottages, and together with the 2 units in the big house, there is an association of 5 units. Within that association is a secondary association, a cohabitation agreement, between the 2 owners of the units in the house. In the documents, it states that we are allowed to make changes to the building as desired, as long as the local authorities grant permits, and as long as these changes to the building do not impede the other owner. Finally, the garden in front of the house is shared by both owners. So, I bought the downstairs unit last August, and all is good. We're doing lots of cleanup inside and out, including in the garden. There was a giant half-dead fruit tree that was blocking the ocean view for the upstairs, so we had it removed. There was a thicket of bamboo that was damaging the house foundation, so we recently had it removed and began building the deck we had planned and discussed with our upstairs neighbor numerous times. And then all hell broke loose. The neighbor is really upset, as much as they allow themselves to show their emotions here. We had built the deck on her property, that there is a property line that runs through the middle of my bedroom window to the street, and that is the division of the property. By building my deck 3 feet/1 meter over that line, I had built on her property without her permission. WTF. I pull out the house documentation to verify my purchase. The garden in front of the house is shared. No part of it is privately owned. We removed the bamboo thicket that was destroying the property, laid down several layers of thick roofing material to prevent the bamboo from growing back, and built a deck on top. What's the harm? Apparently, I had now destroyed her home's value by building the deck onto her property, and she demanded removal to the legally non-existent property line, in the middle of my bedroom window. Apparently my bathroom window opens into her property. Weird, eh? Everyone in the community knows that this is the property line, regardless of what the legal documents say. Now the evil begins. She has an uncle who is an attorney. She obviously sent him the association documents I sent to her, and he must have verified to her that there is no property line, that the garden in front of the house is shared, and therefore we cannot do anything in the garden without her consent, and she does not consent to having a deck in the garden. We cannot build. Can we plant? Can we mow? Where does it stop? But what is not deeded to either owner of the house is the 1 meter/3 foot grassy strip behind the house, nor the property on either side of the dwelling, a good 4 meters/12 feet on either side, going all the way to the street. This land is held in common with the master association of 5 owners. On one side of the house, it is green and partially partitioned off to create a private patio for the upstairs owner. On the other side, a driveway runs the length of the property to a parking lot directly behind the house. Yes, the neighbor walks out of her front door into a private patio on the commonly owned land of the association. I open my front door onto a dilapidated paved driveway that grinds the bottom of your car unless you hit a specific ridge in the pavers. Oh, did I mention that the driveway needs to be repaired? From the bids we received, it is cheaper to just rip out the old driveway and build a new one instead of repairing what is there. And since none of the owners of the 3 cottages like the bitter Betty upstairs, and since there is plenty of commonly owned land on her side of the house, and since I volunteered to pay 1/2 of the cost of a new driveway, we have agreed to place the new driveway on the other side of the main house, directly in front of bitter Betty's entry door. Literally, she opens her door, walks down 2 concrete steps and into the driveway. Additionally, we are going to build a communal tool shed on a patch of land directly behind the house, in front of her guest bedroom window. She has lost all privacy and all chance of getting her money out of her unit. And my deck? The Master Association is allowing me to put it in the area where the old driveway was. The next story is titled I Just Wanted the Truck Moved. I worked as a security guard downtown in a large Canadian city. This story starts when I got a phone call from one of the other guards working. He found a contractor had parked and left a truck in a loading dock bay and was inquiring if I knew anything about it. The site I worked at had 2 buildings, over 60 floors between them, and that shared a loading dock with only 3 spaces. Occasionally, on unexpected slower day, contractors could ask us to leave a vehicle there if they were doing a quick job, but it was infrequent, as the loading dock was really busy. Around this time, there was a company who had just rented 2 or 3 floors, and there was a massive remodel going on there. People were in and out constantly, and the job was going to run for a few months. This made the loading dock bays busy enough that we weren't letting anyone park there, just unload. I had been there that day. No one had asked permission to park, and nothing had been passed on from other guards or property management. I told the guard as much, and he went to find the contractor to have the vehicle moved. About half an hour later, as I'm patrolling, I hear my guard arguing with someone near the building control center. As I approached, I picked up this was an argument about the truck. The contractor was saying that they had been given permission to park there. I walked up and explained that there were only 2 people on site that day that could have given permission. I was one of them and worked with the other for half the day, and we didn't give anyone permission to park there. He needed to move the vehicle. The contractor left at that point, and I thought the issue was settled. About 15 minutes later, I was covering a break in the control room when the foreman of the contract company, who was also the owner of the truck, approached and told me that they had been promised parking and aren't going to move the truck. I again politely explained to him that he didn't have permission, and that the truck needed to move as we needed the loading dock space. He then proceeded to yell at me, call me worthless, explained how he was so much more important than I was, how he made my yearly salary in a month, and most importantly, he wasn't moving the truck and he would get me fired if I kept harassing him. As I started to respond, he just turned and walked away, as he was too busy to bother with me. I was furious. It's bad enough to be disrespecting a whole, but to also threaten my job was too far. I followed after them and asked them really quickly what company they were with, got the company name, and left them alone. I went back to the control center and called the company. I explained who I was, that the truck was illegally parked, that the contractor threatened to have me fired for asking him to move the truck, and that he refused to speak with me about the issue, as he was worth too much to bother with a lowly security guard. We spoke for a few minutes as she apologized and asked me what I wanted to happen. I just asked that the contractor be spoken with, as that level of disrespect is unacceptable. And lastly, the truck had to be moved. Pretty quickly the truck was moved, and the night supervisor for the 3-floor build came and apologized. The contractors were friends of his. He had given them permission to park there as they were helping out for the next few weeks on the job. He paid to park the truck himself, and it cost over $150 to park just for the night in the closest lot. He didn't come across as actually apologetic at all, more a guy doing damage control for his friends. This is where the revenge gets pro. $150 in parking is petty at best. The next day I ran into one of the contractors I was on great terms with. We would often talk for a while when we could. He explained that he was the lead for the entire build on the project, which I had realized previously. I thought he was just one of the regular guys. He spoke with the night supervisor and heard about the issue. Chewed out the night supervisor for handling the situation so poorly, fired the subcontractors from the job, and blacklisted them from ever doing business with them again. The main contractor company was a huge company that is constantly doing work with the property management company, who own around a third of all the major buildings in that city and similar amounts in most of the other big Canadian cities. Not a company you want a bad reputation with. The next story is titled Karen Slapped and Pushed Me because I was ignoring her and not helping. I am an 18-year-old male, born completely deaf and mute. Also, I am partially blind in my left eye. I live with my sister 28F, who had been taking care of me since our parents died. Recently she got married and went on her honeymoon, so I'm on my own for a few weeks. This happened yesterday. Usually, whenever I go out I am accompanied by my sister due to my disability. But now, since she is on her honeymoon, I had to go out alone. There was a new supermarket open in our area, and I needed some items, so decided to go there and grab them. My bad for wearing a red-colored shirt almost similar to the employees working there. But if you look closely, you could see that it was not the uniform. I was at the electronics section looking for some batteries when I see an old man struggling to get some DVD at the top shelf. Since I am tall, I helped him. He thanked me I can do lip reading and went on his way. Then I began looking for the batteries. That's when I felt someone grab my left wrist. I turned around and a woman, in her late 40s, slapped me. She was speaking something, but I couldn't follow her lips as she spoke too fast. However, I was able to catch some words like you, ignore, job, etc. So I signed to her that I am deaf. Apparently, this was a wrong move because she became more irate towards the signs. Again, she was yelling something, but I couldn't catch anything. So I took my notebook and started writing that I am deaf and mute. Before I could finish, she grabbed my notebook and pen and threw them away. Then she slapped me again and pushed me to the ground. Luckily, by this time a store employee came to see what the commotion was about. He saw me on the ground and helped me up. Then he asked me what happened. Before I can sign to him, Karen starts to yell at the employee. I don't know that she said as she was not facing me. After she finished, I signed to employee that I cannot hear or speak. Fortunately, he understood and explained this to the lady, but she is still not convinced. She tries to assault me again, but I moved away. Then I wrote and showed the employee to call the cops on her. The employee nodded and called the cops. Karen tried to run away, but the security caught her. The police arrived in about 10 minutes. They first talked to the employee who explained the situation, about how Karen assaulted me because she mistook me for a store employee. One police officer comes and speaks to me. I understood that he wanted my version of events, so I wrote everything down and showed it to the officer. Then they went to check the CCTV footage, then came back and asked me if I wanted to press charges. I gladly said yes. Karen was then placed in handcuffs and given a free ride at the back of a police cruiser. The manager then explained to me that Karen thought I worked there, and she became angry that I ignored her. She had been standing on my left side, so obviously I couldn't see her. The store manager then offered me a 50% discount on the products. I texted my sister about the events that happened and she was livid. Oh, did I mention that my sister is a lawyer? She told me that she herself will be handling the case and would see to that Karen would get maximum time. Court date is in around 40 days. I will update about it after court. The next story is titled apparently, I should have said, Merry Christmas. So I used to work in a grocery store and still shop there every once in a while. Around Thanksgiving, one of the aisles get turned into a kosher for Hanukkah aisle. Early December this year, I saw one of my friends shopping in this aisle. I know for a fact he is Jewish. I was dressed about as far from the store's uniform as I could be while still wearing clothes. He and I talked for a while, and I left him with Happy Hanukkah. A lady quickly corrected me from the end of the next aisle. You should have said Merry Christmas. I ignored her and went to stand in line at the deli, where I had worked before and still knew some employees. She decided to press the issue. I don't remember the entire conversation, but she eventually demanded to see a manager. Fortunately, one was nearby. He walked up and greeted me first, asking how my job at other company in other city was going. Suffice to say, the lady in question got a good talking to about how different religions handle various food-based restrictions. He added that if she accosted any customer or employee again over how they talk to people of these faiths, she would be banned from the store for the remainder of the holiday season. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.